Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Friday Ramblings. We're here because it is Friday, thus we must ramble. That is the way of things. It is also less than 1 week from St. Patrick's Day, which means we're going to have to talk St. Patrick's Day. No, I'm not going to do another mythology breakdown like I did last month with Valentine's Day. We're going to do something a little different. See, we're going to stick to our pop culture roots. We're going to talk about the Leprechaun. I'm the Leprechaun and I'm coming to get you. Amazingly, there are not just 4 Leprechaun movies. I have this collection because this is the collection I was able to pick up for a reasonable price. But more importantly, not all Leprechaun movies are made equal. Real quick breakdown. The Leprechaun film series is a series of horror films that currently consists of 8 films. It began in 1993, although it was filmed in 1991. And the series centers on a malevolent and murderous leprechaun referred to as Lubdon, who does not like his gold being taken at all, or just generally plain being messed with. Should be noted that none of the films in the series are necessarily presented in chronological order or with the tightest continuity. Thus, with most of the films, you are basically allowed to watch any one you want at random, and you're pretty much going to get the whole story. Very little is picked up from movie to movie. The first 6 films, the main leprechaun was played by the iconic and excellent actor Warwick Davis. Warwick Davis himself has stated that after playing the leprechaun in the first 6 films, he voluntarily decided to stop appearing in not just the Leprechaun films, but horror films in general after the birth of his children, stating that while he did not regret making horror films, and especially Leprechaun films, that once you have children and you start to see the world through their young and innocent eyes, he looks at horror in a different way and feels that with his children being young, it's just not something he is comfortable portraying, since obviously, like anybody, his children are no doubt going to be interested in what daddy's doing. And this is a perfectly understandable and, in fact, I'm going to say honorable mindset. Warwick Davis himself has stated that he is not against filming more Leprechaun movies once his children get old enough to where they're not really going to be children anymore. Which, again, wonderful sentiment. He's not dissing horror, he's not regretting horror, he's just stating he's at a point in his life where he's not comfortable doing horror. Now, the Leprechaun films are also infamous for their dark comedy element to it, which is part of what I love about them personally. I enjoy a little bit of dark comedy to go with your humor. It's part of why I love the Freddy Krueger Nightmare on Elm Street series, except for the reboot. So, let's break down not just these 4 movies, but the other 4 that I do not own on DVD. First of all, only the first 2 films were theatrically released. After a disappointing gross from Leprechaun 2, Vidmark decided to release the following sequels direct to video. Film number 7 was released by Lionsgate and WWE Studios. So, there you go. And all is good with that, you know. It's the way franchises happen. Sometimes they jump studios. No harm, no foul. There was at times attempts to create a crossover film between the Leprechaun and the Candyman film series. In fact, it went as far as having a script treatment written and Davis set to reprise his role. All this was done due to the box office success of Freddy vs. Jason. However, the project stalled when Candyman actor Tony Todd flat out refused to participate in the project, saying he had too much respect for his character to see him used for such a purpose. I guess he didn't like the idea of a crossover film, or maybe he didn't like the way the crossover film treated Candyman. I'm not sure because I've never read the script, and I do not want to assume too much. But, hey, these are fun things that happen. So let's get to the nitty-gritty. The original Leprechaun film from 1993 starred, yes, go ahead and look at her. I know she's green screen. Or not green screen, but green tinted. That's our buddy Jennifer Aniston. Yeah, we love Jennifer. As we said, this was filmed in 1991 and released in 1993, which means it predates Friends, although it was not her original movie role. It was the first movie role in which she got real major recognition. So, yes, we don't just get Jennifer Aniston, we get a pre-Friends Jennifer Aniston, along with our old buddy Warwick Davis, who is awesome because he's Warwick Davis. Rounding out the cast, we also have Ken Olant, Mark Holton, Robert Hy Gorman, Shay Duffin, and some other fun-time people. The basic story is that in 1983, Dan O'Grady returns to his home in North Dakota from a trip to his native Ireland, where he stole a pot of gold from a leprechaun, buried it, and discovered that the leprechaun has followed him home with murderous intent. O'Grady uses a 4-leaf clover to suppress the leprechaun's power and trap him inside a crate, but before he can burn the crate and the leprechaun, he suffers a stroke. Flash forward 10 years, and the O'Grady farmhouse is now a rental property, and teenage Tori, aka Jennifer Aniston, along with a few friends and locals, find the leprechaun's cry for help from the crate while investigating the basement and thinking it's simply a little child who had a prank go wrong. Frees the leprechaun by removing the 4-leaf clover. The bad part is the pot of gold is found, and one coin is swallowed by good-hearted Ozzy, who was the one who also released the leprechaun. They then stash the rest of the gold in an old well, hoping to use it for their benefit. Unfortunately, this means that they are now the gold thieves, and the leprechaun takes out his murderous wrath on the group. I'm not going to get too deep into the spoilers here because, as I said, anytime we do these movies or book reviews, I am giving you just enough to whet your appetite and make you want to track this stuff down. But yes, murders happen. The leprechaun cracks jokes. And when it's all said and done, he is knocked into the well when the 4-leaf clover is shot down his throat via slingshot. And the well is subsequently sealed, just in case the leprechaun manages to hawk that thing up and regain his power, thus ending the film. And you would think, ending the whole concept. You know, again, makes a great one-off movie, but, hey. It's one of those things where, even though they do leave it open-ended, so they could make a sequel, you don't feel like a sequel's obligated. But since the movie made a lot of money, they decided to make that sequel. I will say that leaving something open-ended but not getting the sequel that could happen is a lot better than writing something with a very definitive ending and then having to retcon and rationalize a sequel. Yeah, it's kind of fun to heckle the movie bomb that does not get the sequel it teased. Send them the holograms. Piece of crap. But, as I said, from a writer's perspective, it is a lot better than somebody saying, oh, this thing's definitively 100% dead, never ever coming back. Hey, it came back. So with our nice open-ended sequel and our vow from the Leprechaun that he will get all his gold back one way or the other, we then get a year later Leprechaun 2. Now, unfortunately, because of loose continuity, we don't necessarily pick up from where we left off. This time, we go back 1,000 years to where an evil leprechaun celebrates his 1,000th birthday on St. Patrick's Day. He then tells his human slave, William O'Day, that he has found the perfect bride, and once he marries, the leprechaun promises to grant O'Day his freedom. O'Day is overjoyed at first, but is horrified to see the leprechaun has chosen his beautiful daughter. And the leprechaun says that she will be his once she sneezes 3 consecutive times. However, even though the leprechaun manipulates her to do so, O'Day beats the leprechaun's curse by saying, "God bless you, my child," protecting her from the heathen magic. I'm not going into the whole Christianity thing on this point, folks, but you know what? It's a thing. Nobody ever said horror had the smartest writing in Hollywood. O'Day is promptly killed by the leprechaun, who promises to marry an O'Day descendant in 1,000 years' time. Which brings us to St. Patrick's Day in present-day Los Angeles, where we meet up with Cody and his con artist Uncle Morty, and Cody's girlfriend Bridget. This time, the leprechaun emerges from an Irish tree that was present at the home of Harry Houdini. The leprechaun immediately tears out the gold tooth of a homeless man and goes off to search for his new bride, who just happens to be Bridget as a descendant of the O'Day bloodline. Convenient! Cody tries to win Bridget while the leprechaun tries to woo Bridget. We got a woo-off, folks. We got romantic rivals, and we got some murder going on. Going back to many of the classic mythos about various mystical and occult creatures from the greater UK area, your fairies, pixies, leprechauns, goblins, whatnot. It is brought up that, aside from 4-leaf clovers, cast iron is a weakness of leprechauns. Iron, of course, being a classic weakness of many of those mystical creatures. So I do give the film credit for touching into some real-life mythology. As I said, we're not going to go into too much of the nitty-gritty about this, because I do want you to give the movie a viewing. Hey, double matinee feature for St. Patrick's Day. When it is all said and done, though, Cody does stab the leprechaun with an iron stake, causing him to violently combust. Cody gets the girl and gives up the gold coins that he found while fighting with the leprechaun, remarking it is, quote, not worth it, giving you that happy moral that, unlike the greedy leprechaun, Cody realizes love is better than money. As far as the casting notes on this one, you know, we got Warwick Davis. We got the cult favorite Clint Howard. You know, really, there's not much of a big name cast going around this way, but that's okay because it's horror, and since most of these folks are going to die anyway, probably shouldn't be an actor that you got, you know, a lot of fan feelings for. As we said before, the movie did not get the kind of money that the original film did and disappointed at the box office. So, subsequent movies were sent directly to video. 1 year later, we got yet another Leprechaun movie, this time taking place in Las Vegas. Because, hey, where else are you going to have people hoarding gold and causing mischief than Las Vegas? We're not sure how the Leprechaun managed to uncombust after the second movie. Again, these films don't really touch on that kind of continuity too much. This time he has been not murdering due to being changed into a statue by a magic medallion. However, when a Las Vegas pawn shop removes the medallion so they can sell it, the Leprechaun wakes up and kills him while rampaging throughout a casino looking for one of his iconic and unique gold coins, which passes from hand to hand among the many gamblers in Vegas because it's Vegas, money passes from hand to hand. Leprechaun's ultimately defeated when his gold coin is melted down by a flamethrower, causing the Leprechaun to burst into flames. I guess that's something they established, that he can't exist if his gold doesn't exist, but there's only one coin. I don't know what happened to the rest of his pot. It's fun to see, you know, any horror movie take place in Vegas because, hey, Vegas is Sin City, and horror movies did spawn from classic urban legends, which were all about encouraging people not to sin because bad things may happen to you. So, you know, they would make much worse Leprechaun movies. Kind of like the fourth one, which, hey, you know, it's in my box set because it was a 4-movie box set. Leprechaun 4 takes us to space. We get a sci-fi twist to our Leprechaun because, hey, why not? You make enough movies in a franchise, I guess eventually you got to go into space. This time we waited 2 years. It was 1997 and takes place on a remote planet in the year 2096. So I guess at some point in the next 75 years, we're going to start colonizing, and the Leprechaun's going to get himself some intergalactic, interplanetary citizenship. Where the Leprechaun courts a princess named Zarina in a nefarious plot to become king of her home planet. The two agree to marry, with each partner planning to kill the other after the wedding night in order to enjoy the marriage benefits. A peerage for the Leprechaun. Peerage referring to the hereditary titles used in countries in Europe. Whereas the princess would get the Leprechaun's golden jewels without having to put up with the other. Fortunately, a platoon of space marines arrive on the planet and kill the Leprechaun for interfering with mining operations. One of the marines attempts to steal the Leprechaun's gold, and everything goes bad. There's some really bad, crazy stuff going on in here. It's a Leprechaun in space, folks. I mean, you're not going to watch a movie called Leprechaun in Space expecting this to be the kind of writing that's going to give you a spiritual epiphany and change your entire perspective on what it means to be human. When it's all said and done, the Leprechaun is sucked out from the airlock into space and explodes because it's a monster in outer space. What are you going to do but blow it into an airlock? It's tradition. Now we get a little back-to-back fun because movies 5 and 6 have a little bit of continuity because it is Leprechaun in the Hood and Leprechaun Back to the Hood, aka Leprechaun 6 Back to the Hood. And it is pretty much what you expect. This time the Leprechaun is hanging with your favorite residents of the Hood. Specifically, in this case, we are back to Los Angeles, California, where a rapper played by Ice-T discovers a room full of gold along with a leprechaun that is once again a statue via medallion. The medallion is eventually removed, The gold is stolen, specifically a gold flute, and the leprechaun goes out seeking revenge, while rival rappers attempt to outdo each other in rapper culture. Clover factors back in as a weakness of the leprechaun, which is good. Always nice to have throwbacks to the original movie once you get this far in. When it is all said and done, one of the younger generation rappers manages to make it big. However, it is revealed that part of his success is due to him being under the influence of the leprechaun, who has decided to rebrand himself as a music manager. Closing things out with a evil leprechaun rap. I guess if you live all your life wanting to acquire gold, you get into the music industry. Insert your own jokes here. Eventually, though, things would go bad for the leprechaun. And we would get a end of his music mogul career and a renewal of his getting pissed off when humans mess with his gold. In this case, Father Jacob, who wants to use the gold to build a youth center. Unfortunately, in the process of fighting Lubdon, the leprechaun, Father Jacob banishes him underground but dies of his injuries. Later on, friends Emily and Leslie discover the leprechaun's gold along with some other friends of theirs. Things happen. The hood gets murderous once again. Four-leaf clovers continue to factor in, specifically being mixed with hollow point bullets. And when it's all said and done, the leprechaun is shot up by these clover-enhanced mystical bullets before being hit with his chest of coins and sending him into wet concrete, where he and the chest are buried together. Now, the last two movies in the series get even crazier with it. As we said, for movie 7, WWE would pick things up, and they decided to, especially with news that Warwick Davis had no interest in returning, go the full reboot route and, appropriately enough, cast their own wrestler, Dylan Postal, as the Leprechaun. This is appropriate because Dylan Postal is known for playing the on-screen character of Hornswoggle, who himself claims to be a leprechaun. So there you go. The Leprechaun became the Leprechaun. This time they decided to try to, being a reboot, make it a little more of a traditional horror movie, dropping some of the American elements to it, in which we return to Ireland, where a group of American tourists find themselves under assault while visiting a small Irish village. It turning out that the village has a resident that is a maniacal leprechaun, aside from the regular human residents, and that the human residents live in relative peace with the leprechaun by offering planned sacrifices to them, in this case, the tourists. I like the general idea of the movie, but unfortunately, WWE films are not known for being done. I mean, it's hard to say. I hate picking on WWE films because I am a huge wrestling fan, as people on these channels know, but WWE films are not necessarily the best filmed from a artistic or skill level. And while the base idea of movie 7, aka Leprechaun Origins, is excellent in that for the first time we do return to Ireland and get more of an idea of how, if leprechauns were to exist in modern times, Irish people would deal with it, specifically having to rely on old knowledge and ancient rituals, and how international travel can cause people who don't understand these things to get stuck in the middle. When it's all said and done, it just, pulling away from the dark comedy element of the previous Leprechaun movies, takes a lot of the flavor out of the movies. So, you know, if you are a fan of more serious, gritty, straight-up horror, you're probably going to really like Leprechaun Origins. If you're not, if you did like the more dark comedy approach, I don't think you're going to dig this one quite as much. But, as I said, depending on your tastes, I leave it up to you. The leprechaun in this go-round is decapitated via knife. However, once the last remaining tourist manages to cross into the safe zone outside of the leprechaun's territory, it is revealed that there is not just one leprechaun in this territory, thus leaving things open for sequels that never happened, because the final movie and most recent movie is Leprechaun Returns from 2018 and was distributed this go-round by Lionsgate again, who had helped with the WWE release, and was produced by Blue Ice Pictures. Leprechaun Returns attempts to be a direct sequel to the first Leprechaun movie, in which we are introduced to the daughter of Jennifer Aniston's character from the original film, Taylor, instead of Tori, who encounters the titular character 25 years after her mother traps it in a well, which, yes, folks, if you do the math, the movie came out 25 years after the original movie. A little bit of meta joke for you. Highly appropriate. This time, the leprechaun is portrayed by Lyndon Porso, who is a Canadian actor, and it also appeared in the 2006 American film Little Man as a body double. Being joined by Taylor is a group of her sorority sisters, and the basic plot is that the sorority wants to tear down the house from the original Leprechaun movie to build a new green house, as in not a place to like grow plants, but a ecologically friendly house, a eco-green house. But they awaken the leprechaun, who finds that he is still missing some of his gold, because as you recall, one of the characters from the original film swallowed that gold coin, whoopsie, which of course set off the rampage in the modern time. So, there you go. Leprechaun Returns premiered digitally via video on demand on December 11th, 2018, made its worldwide TV premiere on March 17th, 2019, St. Patrick's Day, on the Sci-Fi Channel before being released on DVD and Blu-ray in June. And while it is not given a great score across the board, it is considered better than some of the later Leprechaun sequels. A lot of people happy to see that a direct sequel to the original movie was made. Personally, I think it would have been fun if we had gotten an actual Jennifer Aniston cameo, but, you know, 25 years later, she did go on to much bigger and better things, so I can see where she might not have wanted to be interested in the project, or may have simply been too busy for it. I don't know. Miss Aniston, if you ever watch this video, feel free to tell us in the comments if you were ever discussed any offers to appear in Leprechaun Returns. I think we would all love that little bit of education. For now, though, I'm going to start my countdown to St. Patrick's Day. I may even watch one or two of these films. And in the meantime, in between time, we're going to have another rambling in 7 days, which will be after St. Patrick's Day. And I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I will tell you, there is going to be a matching theme of greed and gold. Look at that. We're going to have something linking our videos together from week to week. It's going to be a weak link, but there's still a link. So join us in 7 days for that. In the meantime, I still have drinky drink, because I've been talking for a little while here with you wonderful folks, and the throat does get a little parched. So, until then, keep it cool, keep it constructive when you criticize, and remember, you don't have to love everything, but that doesn't mean you have to hate it either. Bye-bye, folks.